Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I am joined by the iCubs broadcaster, Alex Cohen. Alex, how's it going, buddy?
Not too bad. Just in Indianapolis right now. iCubs obviously played on Sunday. They lost 9-8, then got on a bus, got to Indianapolis around 2:00 in the morning, and enjoying the off day here in the Hoosier State. Now I went to IU, so I had the thought of going up to Bloomington, but was way too tired for that, especially to start game one of a 12-game road trip. Before that, taking a trip up to Bloomington, so I decided against it.
Yeah, that was probably a safe bet. That was a safe bet.
Yes.
You're in Indy. It's getting ready to be football season. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on the Eagles and the whole NFL season coming up?
Well, first of all, it's Colts fever here. Walking and seeing all the signs of Anthony Richardson. I've never seen City so excited for their team to go 6-11. So, yeah, no, they're really excited about it, and obviously, I'm a big Eagles fan, and got to see the final game last year. The first 2.5 quarters were great. The last 2.5 quarters were not. And whenever you have a 25-year-old quarterback and a 25-year-old receiver locked up for the next better part of a decade, things are trending in the right direction. So I'm trying to objectively say, like, hey, they're a good football team, but I'm not going to let my biases show through, especially on this podcast.
Dude, I not being an Iowa guy, what's up with college football in Des Moines? Is it mostly Iowa fans? Is it Iowa State fans? Like, how's the balance there in Des Moines?
It's a split. It's a nice melting pot
Is it?
of Iowa State fans. It's a real rivalry, even though they're
Yeah.
not in the same conference. I mean, they do not particularly like each other. And then when they play the second week in September, the city and the state for the pretty much all week shuts down. So
That's wild.
they don't like each other. Ames is about 35 minutes from Des Moines. Iowa City is about an hour and a half. And I can't say that I root for either. I do more work for Iowa State, so I'll say that I'll naturally root for Iowa State then. So
There you go. There you go. All right, so we won't spend the entire episode talking football. There's plenty of fun things happening with the Iowa Cubs right now, so we're going to focus entirely on that AAA affiliate this episode. And I mean, we're really just going to dig in some individual performances, some what guys look like right now, because there's plenty of guys to talk about. We got like 9, 10 or so guys that we want to hit on here.
You can bring up 10 more too. I mean, everyone's been fitting their role quite nicely, whether that's coming up from AA or guys who have been signed as minor league free agents or designated for assignment that could make an impact for the Cubs up in September. So it's a really interesting balance right now. We could talk.
Yeah,
we'll probably talk 10 guys, and you could talk easily 20.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, before we get into these players, it's like Iowa's been interesting this year because they were like, you guys were really strong early on, and there's a little bit of a lull in the middle. I think when you were on here last time, it was that kind of lull, and then you guys have picked it back up. It's been a really good season from start to finish, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you're 19 games over 500, you could call it a successful season. And at the beginning of the season, you start off just such a high. I mean, it's Christopher Morel, it's Matt Mervis, it's two of the most exciting hitters in minor league baseball. And then Morel goes up to the big leagues, Mervis goes up to the big leagues, Jared Young goes up to the big leagues. You lose 40% of your offense, and you struggle a little bit. And then Alexander Canario comes back, Luis Vazquez comes up, Chase Trump comes up. And then obviously Pete Crow-Armstrong helped spark the 7-game winning streak. So it's been the ebbs and flows of the season. You start here, you go down, and now you're on your way back up. So it's been pretty exciting.
All right, let's lead off with the leadoff guy. I mean, because I feel like we can't go deep into this episode without talking about Pete Crow-Armstrong and what he is doing. What that man is doing in Iowa is insane, dude. It's insane.
It's nuts. I mean, he's 21 years old, and the first 2 games he went 0 for 6, but still drew a hit by pitch, stole a base, scored a run, drew a walk, went to first to third, scored a run. So you could see, once he started getting adjusted to AAA pitching, it was going to be good. You didn't think it was going to be this good. I mean, he's played 16 games at the AAA level. He's been on base in all 16 games, and he's hit safely in 14 straight with a walk-off home run, 4 home runs, hitting over 300 with 1,000 OPS. And he's a defense-first outfielder. So it's he does something every game that you're just like, holy crap, man.
I always point out to the fact that it's just so funny that he was acquired for Javi. That is hilarious to me. On Javi was just appointment television every time he was on the screen. And PCA is that way.
It's appointment television. I mean, he hits a ground ball to the right side, and it's appointment television to see if he can beat it out. He hits a ball to the gap, and you're not thinking 2, you're thinking 3. He is incredibly athletic. He's a great team guy. And he's somebody that, he understands the label on him of being a defense first outfielder, gold glove caliber outfielder, because he's like, you know what? I have that. So I'm going to come in early and talk to John Maley and sit, before advanced meetings for 45 minutes and talk to the hitting coach and learn how to hit as a 21-year-old. So you go into that Iowa Cubs locker room and you hear the coaches, and they really try to steer away from lofty expectations and lofty comparisons. And you go into that clubhouse and he's being compared to Andrew Jones, Kenny Lofton, and Ken Griffey Jr. And these are guys that don't like to put lofty comparisons on these prospects, but it's just so glaring that he can be a star if he stays healthy. He has the right head on his shoulders, and he's the biggest Cubs prospect since Chris Bryant, and he's showing why.
We've talked about it in the past few episodes, and I'm curious to get your take on it. The how he would embrace a role up in Chicago if he gets that call up here soon, which I think like when he got called up to Iowa, I think the conversation was, oh, like it'd be nice to see him up in Chicago by the end of the year. And then he's done this. And now the conversation is like, all right, like that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of like when. And we've talked about like me and Brian and me and Zumac, I think all three of us have talked about that role that he could potentially play in Chicago, where it is not necessarily coming in and being a starting every single day player out in center field and batting leadoff. It's not that. But I think that like the way that he could potentially embrace, hey, go out there and play gold glove defense, go out there and steal some bases. And also like, if you want to do some stuff with a stick, that's also fine.
Cool.
It's like, we're calling you up for the other stuff.
Yeah. I think Tommy Birch actually wrote about it this weekend that, the Cubs are going to start playing him in the corner outfield positions in left and in right. So if they are leading the division in September, you bring a guy like that up there and he's a one-war player because of his speed and his defense at this point of the season. Whether you're coming in as a pinch runner, whether you're playing left, giving Ian Happ a blow, playing center, letting Cody play first, playing right, giving Say a blow. He's a guy who saves you games defensively and wins you games on the base pass. He can do that, and there's not that many players who have that type of skill set who do have some juice in the lineup. Who are on pace for 23 home runs, on pace to steal 39 stolen bases, on pace for 54 extra base hits. So the sky's the limit for him. When you're talking about September 2023, I think that he can go up there and help you win games as a pitch runner, as a defensive replacement, and somebody who can start once every 3 days, hit out of the 7 or 8 hole, and make some things happen.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like to me, it's just, a few years back when the Cubs acquired Terrence Gore, and not to bring back bad memeries, but right, he's like he's coming in to pinch run and steal bases, and then
he'll do a little bit more than that.
Yeah, and then in that one gamer against the Rockies, he came in and did that, and then he had to come back and hit later on, which is like that's less than ideal. Where PCA, he can go out there and steal you a base, he can go out there and play gold glove defense. But if you get stuck in a situation where he has to come back around and bat the next inning, fine. That's perfectly fine.
No, I mean, he faced off against Nick Lodolo on Sunday, who's a big league rehabber, a lefty who has ridiculous left on left splits, and PCA sliced a single in a left field at 102 miles per hour. So he's not that far off offensively. I mean, he's 21 years old. He's a guy who obviously like missed all of 2020, had the shoulder injury, the capsule injury that sidelined him for a while, got him traded from the Mets. This is really just his second full year of adapting offensively and going through the rigors of a season, and he's more than surpassed my expectations offensively.
Yeah, he's just been incredible. Let's go from PCA, who is fun in his own right, to Alexander Canario, who's coming back from injury, and really he's starting to find his stride a little bit here over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, 9-game hitting streak, and he's somebody, you look at the stats last year with the 37 homers and the 20-plus doubles and the 20-plus stolen bases. Like, where did this come from? I mean, somebody who was traded, as the secondary piece to Caleb Killian in the Chris Bryant deal. You talked to hitting coach John Maley about Alexander Canario. He says, pound for pound, swing for swing, hitter for hitter, he is the most fun hitter to come through here that I've seen. And he's a big Matt Mervis fan, but just the sound coming off the bat, the athleticism, the ability to draw walks, the ability to steal bases, guy who can catch up to Philo. He can recognize spin. He has a 2-strike approach. He checks all of the boxes. He's essentially a pitcher who throws a 99-mile-per-hour fastball and is just figuring out where to put it. Yeah. I think that Canario, if it clicks, hitting-wise, average-wise. He's a legitimate five-tool player because he has above-average speed. He can play all three positions defensively. He has an absolute hose, and he had 37 home runs last year. If this guy can hit 240, he's a 10-year big leaguer. He's an all-star. So I think in terms of pure potential, obviously Pete Crow-Armstrong, because he could be a perennial Gold Glover and an all-star, is the top prospect in the organization. But pure potential, big league impact, Alexander Canario is a top 3 to 5 prospect in this organization.
Yeah, I think what we saw a lot with Canario, with the prospect rankings and stuff like that, was just a hesitancy to see how he came back from those 2 injuries. Which talk about rehabbing 2 serious injuries. That's not easy. And so I think a lot of people were worried about the explosiveness, which is what so much of his game relies on, right? At the plate,
he wasn't even supposed to play this year.
Exactly.
He wasn't supposed to play this year. And now he's driven in 28 runs in 28 games in Iowa as the 3rd youngest player on this team. Like, let him adjust, let him get back and healthy. And he's been able to do that. You know, granted, he's not on pace for 37 home runs, but he's hit 4. He's got 13 extra base hits. So he wasn't even supposed to play this year.
Yeah. Well, have you noticed a difference in the how comfortable and how back he was when he returned to Iowa compared to like now?
Yeah, I mean, I think his first game he struggled a lot. Then he came back in the second game and hit a home run. So it's just he came to us last year playing in 119 games. He came to us this year playing in 7 games.
Yeah.
You know, he's only played 35 games this year. So I'm really interested to see how everything works in the last month of the season. Obviously we're on a 12-game road trip now. We have a 13-game homestand when we come home, and then 6 games in Louisville. So that's an opportunity for 31 games of Alexander Canario to really put together a half of a season. He's got a 9-game hitting streak right now. We had a double to left center yesterday in the 9th inning, 107.7 miles per hour off the bat. So I think he's going to have a really good second half to his second half.
I think that they're like everybody talks about PCA breaking camp next year in 2024. And I think like Alexander Canario low key has a really good shot of breaking camp in Chicago.
Not even low key. It's not even low key.
Yeah. He hasn't been talked about in that way, and I think he should be. I think that he should be thrown in that conversation I know that it's a crowded outfield. I understand Seiya and Ian Happ are out there. Hopefully Cody Bellinger comes back, all that good stuff. But it's like PCA has the fast track, but Alexander Canario is already on the 40-man roster. He's ready. He's like I think he's close to. I think he's ready to roll next year.
I think if he doesn't have a catastrophic winter ball injury, you're not talking about him with Iowa right now. You're talking about him being the 4th outfielder up at the big leagues and him contributing to this stretch run and not PCA just because of where his skill set was and where his productivity was going into spring training this year, going into winter ball this year.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. All right, a conversation that we've had on this show quite a bit recently. We keep doing check-ins as the season wears on, because in Chicago there's not really that. There's Mark Leiter Jr. who is there to get lefties out of the bullpen in Chicago. But we continue to have this conversation about if there is a lefty called up to Chicago out of the bullpen in Iowa, who is that going to be? And I'm curious to get your take. There's kind of a group of lefties there right now between Luke Little and Bailey Horn and Brendan Little and Anthony Kay is there now. Who do you view as kind of the being the most likely to get called up to be that lefty out-getter out of the bullpen in Chicago?
I mean, I think right now it's Anthony Kay just because he's posted up 0 since he's come here and he's already on the 40-man roster. So I think logistically that makes the most sense. Luke Little at his last outing was some of the most unhittable pitching I've seen coming out of the bullpen. 2 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 5 Ks. And, you see the fastball at 94 to 96. He's 6'8" with long reach. So it's probably coming in close to 98 to 100 miles per hour. So in terms of pure stuff, Luke Little is disgusting. He's really good. But I think when it comes to that first call-up, right now, September 1st, September 4th, September 8th, it's probably Anthony Kay, in my opinion.
Well, Luke Little looks even better doing that when he's wearing the Iowa Caucuses uniform, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think it means something, the fact that he has been so strong down this home quote-unquote home stretch, right, where a lot of times when rosters expand, they're only expanded to 28 players, obviously, this year. But you're looking to kind of ride the hot hand. Anthony Kay has obviously been really good since he went back down to Iowa. He's already on the 40-man roster, but like Luke Little is doing everything in his power to be that guy while he's riding this hot stretch. And I'd like to see the Cubs take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody does. It's just you do have a little bit of 40-man flexibility, but not 100% 40-man flexibility. So you have to be conscious of that, especially if you're trying to add other players like a PCA, like a Yonathan Perlaza, like a Jordan Wicks. Like, you have to be careful with those 40-man spots and starting clocks and what you want to do with that. So I think from a situational left-handed reliever role right now, I mean, I'll reiterate it. I think Kay will probably be the first one up just because he was up in the big leagues for 2.5 months. He didn't pitch that poorly, and he's come back here and he hasn't given up a run. So there'd be no reason not to bring him up. But that's not to say that down the stretch, they need a lefty to strike out some guys, come out there, face against lefties and be virtually unhittable or try to be unhittable. That's not to say that Luke Little is not an option. I just think with some of the 40-man spots, some of the guys who they are going to add or think about adding, I think that left-handed reliever-wise, going with somebody like Kay makes a little bit more sense right now.
Dude, imagine being a left-handed hitter trying to hit off Luke Little. Right, like it's just the angle in which he threw. Like,
I'm up in the booth and they're down on the field. That's why I don't want to imagine that. It's very uncomfortable.
It's why, I mean, there's a reason why he has a strikeout rate over 30%. There's a reason why when players are making contact by chance, it's going weakly on the ground. There's a reason why.
He's nasty. I mean, and he's somebody who's been up at the AAA level for 3 weeks. He's somebody that next year I would expect to compete for a role in the bullpen. Up in the big leagues. I want to see a little bit more than just one outing of 2 innings and 5 strikeouts, but this outing in particular is really dominant.
But it's also something that he's not just going 1-inning outings, right? He's going 2 innings at a time.
Out.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting, right? With Daniel Palencia and Luke Little, I a lot of times Luke lump those guys into the same conversation. One's righty, one's lefty. Obviously, they're different guys, but they're both guys that throw heat. They're both guys that have good sliders. But when Daniel Palencia was converted from a starting pitcher to a reliever, he has worked almost like predominantly in 1-inning stints versus Luke Little was converted from starter to reliever, and he's throwing 2 innings at a time. It's a little bit different than what we've seen from Daniel Palencia, which is super interesting to me.
Yeah, but I mean, they're different types of pitchers in that sense, just because Palencia came in as a reliever and they just said, you know what, max velo, throw as hard as you possibly can. Now with Little looks like it looks like he's long tossing. Yeah, it just looks so effortless. They both throw hard, but they do it in different ways. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think Luke Little being a multi-inning reliever adds a lot of value to his plate. I think that he's going to be a big league arm. I'm just curious to see when that's going to happen.
Yeah. You briefly mentioned Jordan Wicks, which I think that he has started taking off. And if you're checking Cubs Twitter quite a bit, people have been mentioning Jordan Wicks quite a bit more. And it's because he's had quite a few, the last 4 starts have been really strong from Jordan Wicks. I think the Cubs rotation needs some stability. And I've been one to say that I think Jordan Wicks, of all the guys that are available, which honestly, there's not a ton, but of the guys that are available, it's like Jordan Wicks, if I am picking out a guy that just like epitomizes stability,
it's him.
Jordan Wicks is that guy, right?
I couldn't agree more. People talk about Jordan Wicks. Oh, his ceiling isn't that high. Okay, fine. Because at the back end of it, at the floor, he's a 5. He's a guy who's going to be in the big leagues for 8 to 10 years. A guy who's going to go out there, throw 5 innings, give up 2 runs, strike out 4, walk 1, have the best left-handed changeup in the organization, and is going to eat up innings. The comp there is, Drew Smiley, Ted Lilly, who was on my broadcast when Wicks pitched. He's like, I'm not going to say he reminds me a lot of me, but there's a lot there. Ted Lilly was a 2-time All-Star.
Yeah.
So I actually think that his last start where he gave up 2 runs in 4 2/3, that was his best start. He struck out 7. People could not hit the changeup. Fastball was up to 93 to 94. He looked nasty. Just ran into a little bit of bad luck in the 4th inning. Prior to that, 3 consecutive starts of 5 innings and 1 earned run. And I remember Posey said that's pretty good, on Twitter. And somebody's like, well, his strikeouts are down. Yeah, but so are his walks. And guys are hitting 167 against him. And the average exit velocity against him is like 68 miles per hour. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with him not striking out 10 batters per 9 innings. I mean, I'd rather not be around 5. It's not. It's around, 8. But
Mm-hmm.
I think he's somebody who could come up right now and you know what you're going to get. He's not going to kill your bullpen. He's going to throw 4 or 5 innings. He's going to give up 1 or 2 runs and give you an opportunity to win the ball game. And I think he can do that right now in the big leagues.
And if he's giving up those 2 or 3 runs in the first inning, he's still eating those getting to the 4th or 5th inning regardless,
100%.
which is so valuable, especially as the ring of trust in the Chicago bullpen gets smaller and smaller. They're using those guys a little bit more often. You need guys that'll eat innings, and I think that Jordan Wicks does that. I pointed out the fact that once he's been up in Iowa from Tennessee, we've seen his swinging strike rate go down from AA up to AAA. But we've seen the looking strikes that he's getting go up. So I don't know. I don't know if you have a theory behind that, but it's been really interesting because the combined swinging strikes and looking strikes is just about the same as it was in down in AA. But just the way he's getting those is just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's morphing and maturing as a pitcher. There's more stuff to his arsenal than just change a fastball, throw it in any count. There's a rhythm. There's a method to the madness. It's working with Ron Vallone and trying to reconfigure and rework that pitching identity. That's different in AA with the tack ball that he had for a half a season. So I think he's big league ready. I think you throw him up there right now every 5th day. You're going to be in a position to win every 5th day. So
he's not going to make you look stupid if you call him up right now, and that's huge. Honestly, that's huge. I've said that I really like the shape of his fastball, of Jordan Wicks' fastball. We know that the changeup is one of the best in the system, but it's that the fact that he has 6 pitches essentially to play with is huge. You get him up to the big leagues, maybe it's tinkering with a few of the pitches here and there. I know Tommy Hotovy is great at that. See what kind of sticks, and maybe he doesn't have to be a guy who throws 6 different pitches. He can be a guy that throws in a short stint in the rest of this year, throws 3 different pitches in Chicago. It simplifies things in a short amount of time, and I think that he could thrive off of that this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you say that the rotation needs some more stability. I think with Marcus Stroman being out X amount of time, still to be determined, I think there's an opportunity for him to showcase and go up there. But remember, I mean, you still have Drew Smiley. You still have Hayden Wesneski. You still have Javier Asad who's pitching really well. You have Kyle Hendricks. You have Justin Steele. So you already have these guys with the scheduled off days that you don't need a 6-man rotation. You might not even need a 5-man rotation. Yeah. So I don't think the need for starting pitching is as much as you do. But I do think that, hey, Jordan, you're going to go up there and start every 5th day. You're going to have an opportunity to win every 5th day. And I think that's
exactly. All right, let's go one more pitcher before we transition into some hitters here. Keegan Thompson, who has looked better recently. I know he went down to AAA, got sent down there, and really struggled early on. What's been your take on the Keegan Thompson experience?
He had to get healthy. Healthy. He was a guy who missed a month. He had some stuff going on, and he was able to take that time and get healthy and come back, and he looks good. And, his last 4 outings, he's gone 8 1/3 innings. He's given up, 2 runs on 6 hits with 8 Ks and 1 walk. And, I posted that on Twitter, and somebody said, well, that's not a great line for 8 1/3 innings. I'm like,
I saw that. What?
Pretty good.
ERA, I'll take that. Or not even.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I'd like to see the hits go down. It's like, well, he's not even averaging like a hit given up per inning. It's actually far less than that. So, but I do think the expectation is, these guys are going to go down to AAA and just shove and never give up a hit and strike out everybody. And that's not exactly the case. And especially with Keegan, his difficulty before he went on the IL was he had no feel for his secondaries. He could not throw the cutter to lefties. He could not throw the slider to righties. And since he's come back, he's been able to do that. The fastball velo isn't 96 like it was last year, but it's 92 to 94, tops at 95. He's able to locate it. Cutter looks great. Slider looks good. He's thrown an occasional changeup and a curveball. So he's still able to throw 5 pitches for strikes. I think that if you could put together 2 more outings that he's doing this, probably back up in the big leagues.
Where should I gauge on like 1 to 10? Where should my excitement level on Keegan Thompson helping Chicago be?
Well, it depends on where your baseline is. I think that if you're expecting to be the best reliever in the bullpen for a year and a half, probably not going to be that right now because Adbert Alzolay has been so good. I don't think he's going to close games for the Cubs. I think he can go up there and be, a sixth, seventh inning guy, give you an inning and a third, and post up some zeros. He's still going to get some hard hit balls against righties with fastballs, but he's somebody that's going to battle. He's going to attack. He's not out of the zone anymore. Obviously, with the one walk in 8 1/3 innings, that control is something that he's been able to regain a grasp on. I don't think that he'll be closing any games, but I think that he could be a useful bullpen arm.
All right, dude. Let's transition away from. Actually, before we transition away from pitchers, I'm putting you on the spot here. What's a pitcher there in Iowa that may not be getting enough love on all the social medias out there?
That's a really good question. Pitcher that's not getting enough love on. So I don't think Anthony Kay is getting enough love. I think that he's a guy who he pitched up in the big leagues for 2.5 months. He had 2 bad outings.
Yeah.
2 bad outings.
Yeah. And
he pitched really well. I mean, he ate up some innings, and he's come down here and hasn't given up a run. He's a lefty who throws 96 and great left on left stuff. I just don't think I'm not gonna say he's not getting enough love. I think he's underappreciated.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, what's the difference between not getting enough love and being underappreciated?
No,
I think you're right. I think you're right.
No, because when you pitch well, you get love. It's like instantaneous success.
Yeah, you're right.
So whenever you throw a scoreless outing, you're naturally going to get some love and a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
I just think that, after the bad outings, people are like, oh, well, you have to send them down. When you're up in the big leagues, you're allowed to have bad outings.
Yeah, dude.
Not everyone can be an all-star.
I can't imagine being a reliever, just in general, because you have one bad outing. You're in the bullpen warming up, and you're just not feeling good that day. Like you feel like your stuff isn't quite there. You still come in the game, you give up a few runs, and then your ERA goes from 2 to 5. It's like I can't imagine. I can't imagine being a reliever in baseball. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're Craig Kimbrell or Mariano Rivera, and every time that you're going to go out there, you're probably going to get guys out. I wouldn't want to do that.
I mean, confidence is huge with all baseball players. With relievers, it's got to be astronomical.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and transition into there's 3 hitters that I want to talk about today, because they're all 3 kind of, talk about under the radar type guys. They've all been this way to a certain degree this year. Let's talk first about Bryce Windham, actually, because I feel like I tweet a lot about Bryce Windham, but I haven't talked about him a whole lot on the show, and he's closer to being like that big league backup catcher than we think. He is performing pretty damn well down in Iowa. He is a super freak athlete. He seems to manage pitchers really well.
Probably the best athlete on this team.
Yeah,
and he was a Division I basketball star. I mean, he's a good player. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. I think it was Bryce. I've talked about it on the show before. I think it was Bryce who had the video of him shooting threes, both lefty and righty.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous. He's just a freak athlete. But let's talk about Bryce and just like the fact that he's getting basically no love out there. And I think what he does value-wise, in addition to just putting up decent numbers, he puts the bat on the ball as good as almost anybody in the entire system.
Yeah, doesn't draw walks, but he doesn't strike out. I mean, it's like a 14% strikeout rate and a 8% walk rate. I mean, he always has quality at bats and puts the ball in play. I don't know if this is the reason why he doesn't get love, but usually with catchers with Miguel Amaya, you could play him at first. With PJ Higgins, you could play him at third. But Bryce can't really do that. Not right now, at least. I mean, he was a convert guy too. I mean, he was a guy who was a middle infielder, but you're not going to do that at this level. Also, doesn't particularly hit for power. He has 1 home run this year. So when you have a guy who's not that versatile, who doesn't hit many home runs, the sky is not that high. But he's a guy who there's less of a margin for error, but he's proven to not have the margin for error because he's hitting close to 300. He's hitting left-handed pitching well. He's able to steal bases. He's able to call good games. He's throwing out guys in the second half at a 30% clip. So I think what he's been asked to do, he's done really well. But you're not going to go up and be like, hey, Bryce, go up to the big leagues and hit 10 home runs. Probably not going to do that. Hey, Bryce, go up there and, play second 1 game, DH 1 game, and catch 1 game because you're probably not going to get that. But in terms of being a backup catcher who can give you quality at bats and call a good game, these guys are big leaguer to me.
Yeah, I talked about on last week's show about the like ranking catching prospects and how it's really, really tough because that difference between a starting catcher in the big leagues, a backup catcher in the big leagues, and then like a depth guy in AAA is
Yeah.
so small, like so small. With Bryce, it feels more like that starting catcher in the big leagues is not really, and I don't mean this in a he's a bad player kind of thing, but that starting catcher in the big leagues feels like an extreme reach. Like he just feels like a good,
Cut
like
back.
he's the backup catcher. Like, and he is the guy that the Cubs have been putting together in the system. Like they love those type of catchers in their system.
Mhm.
They've had that for years now. We've talked about that how Wilson Contreras was the anomaly in terms of catchers in
Yeah.
this organization. The Bryce Windham mold, the Miguel Amaya before he broke out mold,
Yeah.
the Pablo Aliendo mold, like that guy that just like pitchers love throwing to him. He's a good athlete. He can work behind the plate, and then like he holds his own at the plate. Like it's
Yeah.
Bryce Windham is that mold to a T. Like that's what the Cubs front office seems to love.
And I think he is that. Yeah, I think Bryce is. If this were 1992, he's probably starting catcher up in the big leagues. But
Yeah.
because he's not particularly versatile right now, and he doesn't hit for power in 2023, you can't play every day up in the big leagues. Or
Mm-hmm.
odds are you're not going to play every day up in the big leagues. But he's a guy that, with his speed, he can run a little bit from the
Yeah.
left side. He's really become impressive behind the plate and when it comes to pitch calling and working account and working with pitchers. I think having PJ Higgins here has helped because PJ actually taught Bryce how to
Yeah.
initially catch. They both went to Old Dominion, so I think having PJ here has really helped his growth. I think having a manager as a catcher in Marty Peavy has helped his growth as well because they worked a lot when it comes to this. So I think that there's still a lot of room for him to grow, and I think that he can go up and contribute at the big league level sporadically.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know if it was on last week's episode or with Brendan Miller over on our live stream recently. Talked about the pitch lab, right? And how the pitch lab isn't always creating players that are absolute studs in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a guy like I use Michael Rucker as an example, right? Where it took a guy who was a starting pitcher in Double-A, right? And it made him into a guy who got productive play in the big leagues.
Yeah.
He was not that
Yeah.
stud ninth inning guy in the big leagues, but he logged
No.
a lot of last year,
Not a
especially
damn in
a
the big
lot of
leagues.
major
He's
league
been up in the big
innings.
leagues the last 2 years. He's
And
up
he
there right
was,
now. He's gotten major outs.
for all intents and purposes, he was stalling out in Double-A as a starting pitcher. And so you create in development, you can't create studs all the time. You create role players, and I think Bryce Windham is that role player that they're creating.
I agree.
So
And everyone's like, oh, you're going to go to the pitch lab. And if you can't, become an all-star closer, then you're a wash, or an all-star
yeah,
starter, you're a wash. No, you go to the pitch lab because you're Brandon Hughes and you're a center fielder, and you go to the pitch lab and you become a big leaguer.
yeah,
You go to the pitch lab because you're Michael Rucker and you've stalled out as a Double-A starter, and you go to the pitch lab and you pitch 2 or 3 years up in the big leagues because there's value there. Like
exactly.
that is still value. I'm sorry, it's still value.
You're absolutely right. I'm with you. Let's talk Luis Vazquez because he has been like the Luis Vazquez path has been so strange to me, dude. Like as someone who's covered the system for the entire time that Luis Vazquez has been in the organization, and to see him put up year after year of OPS right around 600, right below 600, right above 600, like right around there for his entire career for like 5 or 6 years, and then break out this way this year has been miraculous in my eyes.
Gain weight. I mean, I think that he grew up a little bit. I think, the difference between being, starting in 2022 as a 21-year-old in cold Double-A, now being a 23-year-old, 25 pounds heavier in a good way of muscle at the AAA level where he's already been. You remember he debuted in AAA in 2019 as a defensive replacement and had a month with us last year. But anything you get from him offensively is a bonus. He is the best defensive shortstop I've seen in this organization in my 5 years of being here. And it's not even close. I mean, obviously, Dansby Swanson is somebody who signed as a free agent. I don't consider him in that, but I'm talking about drafted, coming up, prospect shortstop, prospect infielder. He is so good defensively. He is a
single game.
stud. He is a stud.
Every single game he seems to make something, and it's going to his left up the middle, it's going to his backhand, it's coming in on balls. It's every single, like, there's no weakness in his defensive game. It was like
he was put on a baseball field to field ground balls up the middle.
Yeah, it's wild.
And for him to break out to 20 plus home run power, that's a bonus. Now for him to get up in the big leagues, he doesn't have to hit 20 home runs. But it'd be really nice if he hit 6 to 8. He doesn't have to hit 265. It'd be really nice if he hit 225, 235, 245. If Luis Vazquez can consistently hit 235 and get on base at a 320 clip, he's a 2.5 WAR player up in the big leagues. He is an above average big league player because of what value he brings defensively. He's legitimate Gold Glove at 2 positions.
Well, we were having conversations last offseason about, should the Cubs add him to the 40-man roster to protect him from losing him? He's back in the organization, and that was coming off of a year where he was not good at all offensively. Yeah. And so now it's going to be super interesting this offseason as he's entering his minor league free agency stage, if the Cubs add him to the 40-man roster to protect him and keep him in the organization. I feel like with that defensive skill, you have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to talk on baseball operations and player development, and if they're going to keep guys, if they're not. If I'm in that spot, I can tell you what I'm doing in that chair. I'm sure as hell protecting him.
Yeah,
He's the type of guy, if you don't protect him, the Dodgers take him in the Rule 5 draft and have him become Kike Hernandez on steroids.
Yeah, he's and honestly, if you're making a short list of just the most fun players in the organization to watch, because of those defensive skills, he's definitely on that short list. There's PCA's up there. Luis Vazquez is on the short list of best players.
Well, think about what the I-Cubs have up the middle with Vazquez at short, PCA and center. I mean, it is really good. Yeah, it is really good. And you talk to the coaching staff for the I-Cubs and, especially manager Marty Peavy. And again, he's not one to just throw out compliments. He's like, that boy can pick it. He can pick it.
I love it. That's about high praise.
That's as ringing of an endorsement as you can get. And when he's just I'm going to put him out there every single day. I don't care if he hits 200 because he's going to win me games defensively. And he literally wins this game defensively. I don't know if you saw some of the plays that he made this past series. One at second where he literally dove on the outfield grass, backhanded, got up, spun through to first. He's a wizard defensively.
So he's really great defensively in terms of his range and showing off that deep in the hole. But it's the fact that he can get up. There was a play, I think it was last week, where he was deep in the hole at shortstop too, dove basically on the grass, and then threw a strike over to first base. That's a big part of his game too. Yeah, he's throwing an accurate throw, accurate and strong throw after making a diving play. That's huge. That's incredible. Let's go from Luis Vazquez, who has been known for his defense all this time, to let's kind of turn things on its head. Yonathan Perlaza feels like kind of the opposite type of guy, right? We're Yonathan's he's not the defensive guy at all, but he's just been so strong offensively at the plate the entire year long and gotten better and better as his entire career has worn on.
Has gone on. Yeah. I mean, if you look at 2022, 2023, he is on pace to have 66 extra base hits per year for 280 games. That's not a small sample size. All he did last year is hit 24 homers, 34 doubles. And now he has 34 doubles, 19 homers, 3 triples, hitting for a higher batting average, drawing more walks, higher OPS, higher OBP. He is maturing as a hitter. He has a 2-strike approach. He's a switch hitter, getting more comfortable from the right side than he is from the left side. In an era of baseball where you have universal DH, it boggles my mind that he is not up at the big leagues.
Yeah, you're right. It's the fact that the splits aren't really there because he's equally as good righty as lefty. Yes. I'm curious. So I was talking with Brendan on the live stream. Something that confuses me a little bit is that if you look at the StatCast data, the swing and miss type stuff from Perlaza, the contact rate is actually pretty low on him. I think it's down south of 70%. I think it's 67% or something like that.
Do you want to know why? Because early on in the count, he swings out of his shoes to try to ambush early pitches. And when he misses and he goes down in the count 0-1, 1-2. He has the best two-strike approach in the organization because he sprays, he takes. He brings the count back to 2-2, 3-2, draws a walk. It's a single. But look at his swing and chase rate early on in counts.
Yeah.
First pitch swinging, second pitch swinging. He falls behind early because he wants to hit a ball halfway back to Chicago.
Because he can.
Then 2 strikes in because he can. Because 2 strikes, because he's built like a fullback. He's built like Mike Singletary in the 1970s or 1980s. I just think that his 2-strike approach is superb. And he's somebody's like, you know what? I'm going to take my hacks at 0-1, 1-1 because I know at 1-2, 2-2, I'm still going to be able to get on base.
Yeah, so that was kind of my theory behind it was the big daddy hacks early on, and then because I know his 2-strike approach is pretty damn good, so that was kind of my theory. But I wanted to get it from your perspective, where like you're seeing every single one of his at bats.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. No, it is. Yeah, he's back footing first pitches, just trying to hit him 600 feet.
You know what I kind of love is the fact that Mark Wiseman is with strength and conditioning in the Cubs system. And he was the running back, fullback, whatever you want to say, down or over at Iowa back in the day. Yonathan Perlaza and Mark Wiseman, they're built the same way. Yonathan Perlaza could have made a Heisman run back in the day over playing running back for Iowa.
Yeah, I would not want to face him on a football field. He's a beast. He's a beast. But no, as I said with Perlaza, I mean, in the era where there's a universal DH, there's no doubt in my mind that one of the teams in the big leagues right now could use him right now, especially being a switch hitter with a 390 on base, with 20-plus home run power, 30-plus double power, and 20 stolen base. So,
yeah, I think a team that I think he would succeed to a certain degree with whatever team he got called up on. This is not a Dodgers and Rays situation where he has to fit in the right organization. This is give him playing time at the major league level, and I think that he will have some sort of success there.
He's going to hit 264 with a 357 on base percentage. You give him 162 games, you play him 130 of those games, probably hits 24 doubles, 12 homers, and is a productive hitter.
Yeah. All right, man. Any other, like I did with the pitchers, any other hitters that you want to kind of just mention, give some love to?
Yeah, I really I've been impressed with Chase Trump over the last 2 weeks. So he started off with us, first swing, hit a home run. Next game, hit a home run against Gavin Williams, who's now up in the big leagues with the Guardians. You're like, man, this guy's he's second-round draft pick. He's going to be up in the big leagues. And then he hit 112 over a month stretch, which could kill somebody's confidence. And all he did was work some more and keep a good head on his shoulders. He obviously had that big game in Omaha 2 weeks ago where he had a grand slam and a 3-run home run and a double. Yesterday, he had 3 huge at-bats to help spark an I-Cubs comeback. Ended up falling short, but RBI, double, home run. I mean, Chase Trump is a guy where you might look at the batting average, it's, 226 for the year. It's 194 with Iowa. But he's a guy who has 20-plus home runs, and he gets on base at a 350 clip. If you get on base at a 350 clip and you have 20 home runs, you're a second-round draft pick, you're a good clubhouse guy, you could play second, you could play third. Guess what? Odds are you could be a big leaguer. So I think that, he rebounded quite nicely from a month of struggles. And he's somebody where if that work pays off and it becomes consistent and it's not just, you play great for a week and you play not well for a week, if he can play consistently, especially this last month, you swing the bat well, 260 clip with some home runs, you got a shot. I think he's got a shot. I think he works really hard. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he draws walks and hits homers, which in this era of baseball is important.
There is always a place to talk Chase Trump on the Cubs on Deck podcast.
I knew you would appreciate that.
Talk dirty to me.
I knew we could talk cheese. We could talk cheese. So
the cheese man is always can always be talked about here. All right, man. You want to go ahead and plug yourself? Is there anything? I guess on Twitter, Voice of Cohen too, right?
Yeah, Voice of Cohen too. Make sure you listen at iowacubs.com at AM 940 for. If you're listening in the Des Moines area, we got some games on Marquee Sports Network. We got some games on Road to Wrigley. You can also watch us on the Bally Live app. You can also watch us on MILB TV. I would just say if you're excited about the future of the Chicago Cubs, anytime that you can watch a lineup of Pete Crow-Armstrong, Matt Mervis, Alexander Canario with guys like Jordan Wicks or possibly Ben Brown when he gets healthy on the mound. It's a really, really fun time to watch, listen, and observe Iowa Cubs baseball. I know I'm speaking at it from a biased place, but this is a really talented team. They're 19 games over 500. They have 32 come from behind wins. They're 21-6 in one-run games. They've scored 10 or more runs in 21 great. I mean, it's ridiculous what this team can do.
I'll come at it from a different perspective, not someone who calls all the games. Watch Iowa, watch Iowa. I mean, because there has been years in the past where the Iowa Cubs have not been the fun. Like Myrtle Beach last year was the most fun team in the organization to watch. That just happens. Yeah. This year, Iowa is incredible. Whether it's the prospect talent that's there, the offense showing out, the top pitching prospects that are there, the way in which they're winning games. Tune into the Iowa Cubs because like this year, they've just been incredible. They've been so much fun to watch. We let off the show with this, but it's been so much fun to watch all year long. Definitely tune in. So yeah, I'm with you, dude. You're not entirely biased with that.
I appreciate that. No, I appreciate what you guys are doing. And it's a great time to be a Cubs fan, with the Cubs being in the middle of a pennant race and the minor league affiliates, Tennessee, Iowa, and Myrtle Beach all being double-digit games over 500. That's a pretty good season when it comes to organizational baseball.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Out of the Vines. You can find me find the podcast over on Instagram at Cubs on Deck. You can find us find me over on Threads at Cubs on Deck as well. Check out Threads. We'll see if it becomes a thing. I don't know, but you can check out this show, all the podcast episodes over on the Northside Bound YouTube page. You can also find I mentioned the live stream I did with Brendan Miller. That's over on from CHGO. That's over on the YouTube page as well. We kind of just answered listener questions for an hour and a half long. Some prospect questions, some major league questions, just all of the above. So go check that out if you want to see some questions answered and see two nerds rambling for an hour and a half. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. And for everybody else out there, we will be back in your ears in one short week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.